The invitation to my own daughter's wedding arrived on expensive cream-colored paper, addressed only to the Hendersons, my ex-husband and his new wife. My name was conspicuously absent. I stared at the elegant calligraphy through tears, remembering the $45,000 check I'd written just last month for what Victoria, my former mother-in-law, had called essential wedding expenses. My name is Catherine Chin, 48, owner of a successful interior design firm, and apparently no longer welcome at my only daughter Emma's wedding, despite funding most of it. Mom. Emma's voice on the phone was small, uncertain. Did you get the invitation? I can explain. Sweetheart. I kept my voice steady, though my hands shook. What's going on? Grandma Victoria says. She says it would be better if you weren't there. That it might make people uncomfortable. Dad agrees. She paused. They say it's for the best, that it will be more traditional this way. Traditional. Victoria's favorite word when she wanted to exclude me. She'd used it throughout Emma's childhood. Traditional family values that somehow never included the Chinese-American mother who trapped her precious son into marriage by getting pregnant in college. Never mind that James and I had been deeply in love. Never mind that we'd built a successful life together before he left me for his younger secretary 15 years later. Never mind that I'd raised Emma largely alone while building my business from scratch. Emma, I said carefully, I'd pay for most of the wedding. The venue, the catering, the flowers. I know, Mom. But Grandma Victoria says she's handling everything now. She says you wouldn't understand the kind of wedding we're planning. That your taste is too. She trailed off. Too what, Emma? Too modern. Too different. Her voice dropped to a whisper. She says it would embarrass the family to have you there. The words hit like physical blows. For 25 years, I'd weathered Victoria's subtle racism and not so subtle disdain. I'd stayed quiet when she criticized my parenting, my career, my foreign ideas about raising Emma. But this was too far. Put Victoria on the phone, I said quietly. Oh, Catherine. Victoria's voice dripped with artificial sympathy. I was hoping we could avoid any unpleasantness. Surely you understand that Emma deserves a proper wedding. Something elegant. I understand that I've paid for this proper wedding, I replied. Every check signed in my name. About that, she cut in smoothly. James will be reimbursing you, of course. We can't have Emma's wedding tainted by outside money. Outside money? My laugh held no humor. You mean my money? The money I earned building my own company while James was living off his trust fund? Now, Catherine, there's no need to be bitter. We're simply trying to give Emma the wedding she deserves. A traditional celebration with her father's family. You understand, don't you? It's better this way. I thought about the venue contract in my office safe, about the receipts and agreements all bearing my signature, about the conversations with vendors that Victoria didn't know I'd recorded. Actually, Victoria, I don't understand, but I think it's time we had a proper conversation about this wedding. In person. That won't be necessary, she said dismissively. Everything's arranged. The invitations are sent. Emma agrees this is for the best. Does she? I kept my voice level. Or have you and James manipulated her the way you always have, using tradition and family obligations to control her? Victoria's tone turned icy. I won't be spoken to this way by someone, whoa. By someone who what, Victoria? Someone who's paid for the entire wedding. Someone who's been more of a parent to Emma than James ever was. Someone who doesn't fit your narrow definition of family. The money is being repaid, she snapped. After that, you have no claim to this wedding. Emma needs to focus on joining the right kind of family now. The right kind of family. The words echoed in my head, stirring memories of every slight, every exclusion, every time Victoria had made me feel less than worthy of her precious son and granddaughter. We'll see about that, I said quietly and hung up. My hands were steady now as I opened my safe, pulling out the carefully organized files. Victoria had no idea that 25 years of running my own business had taught me to document everything. Every check, every contract, every conversation, and most importantly, every legal agreement that gave me not just financial stake in this wedding, but full control over most of the arrangements. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Mom, please don't make this difficult. Grandma says we can have a separate celebration later. Another message followed from James. Don't ruin this for Emma. Just accept the repayment and step back. It's what's best for everyone. Best for everyone. Best for their image. Best for Victoria's social standing. But what about what was best for my daughter? I picked up my phone and dialed a number I'd hoped never to need. Claire? It's Catherine Chen. Remember that favor you owe me from the governor's mansion renovation? I need your help with something at the Grand Plaza Hotel. Claire Wong was not only the hotel's general manager, but also one of my oldest friends. She'd been there through my divorce, through Victoria's countless attempts to erase me from Emma's life. The wedding contracts? She sounded unsurprised. Victoria was just here trying to change them. I told her only the person who signed them could make adjustments. And what did she say to that? She said the contracts would be transferred to her name, that you'd agreed to step back from the wedding entirely. I smiled grimly. Did she now? Tell me, Claire, what's the hotel's policy on attempted fraud? Very strict. Claire's voice held a note of satisfaction. Would you like me to pull the security footage from her visit? An hour later, I sat in my office reviewing everything. Venue contracts, vendor agreements, Victoria's attempts to change them, and most importantly, emails between Victoria and James discussing their plan to take over the wedding and exclude me. We'll repay her with part of Emma's trust fund, James had written. Once everything's in our name, she'll have no choice but to stay away. My daughter's trust fund, the one I'd established for her future, that James had somehow gained control of during our divorce. Another text from Emma made my heart ache. Grandma's really upset. Mom, she says you're being difficult about the contracts. Please just let her handle everything. She knows what's best. I closed my eyes, remembering all the times I'd stayed quiet for Emma's sake. All the times I'd let Victoria's subtle racism and manipulation slide to keep the peace. But not this time. This time, I had proof. And Victoria was about to learn that the quiet, accommodating daughter-in-law she dismissed for 25 years had finally had enough. My phone rang. The wedding planner Victoria had hired with my money. Time to start taking back control of my daughter's wedding, one contract at a time. The Grand Plaza Hotel's private dining room crackled with tension. Victoria sat at the head of the table like a queen holding court, surrounded by her chosen wedding vendors. My daughter Emma perched nervously beside her, while James and his new wife Susan lingered near the door. I walked in exactly 10 minutes late, accompanied by Claire Wong and my lawyer, Michelle Santos. Victoria's perfectly composed face flickered with annoyance. Catherine, she sighed dramatically, this meeting isn't necessary. We've already reassigned all the contracts. Have you? I set my portfolio on the table. That's interesting because I have the originals right here. All in my name, all legally binding. Mom, Emma started, but Victoria cut her off. We've arranged to repay you, she said smoothly. After that, you have no claim to any of these arrangements. I smiled, opening my portfolio. Actually, let's talk about those arrangements, starting with how you've been using my daughter's trust fund, the one I established, to fund your takeover of her wedding. James straightened. That's a family matter. Oh, we're definitely going to discuss family. I turned to the vendors. I assume Victoria has contacted all of you about transferring the contracts to her name. Nods around the table. The florist, an elegant woman named Maria, spoke up. Mrs. Henderson assured us it was all arranged with you. Did she? I pulled out copies of emails between Victoria and the vendors, including the part where she planned to cancel the original orders I placed and replace them with her own choices. After the cancellation deadline, ensuring I'd still be charged. The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria's face flushed. That's private correspondence. Nothing about your fraud is private anymore. I turned to Emma. Sweetheart, did you know Grandma Victoria planned to cancel the cherry blossom arrangements you wanted? The ones that reminded you of our trips to Japan. Emma's eyes widened. But you said those were too ethnic. She turned to Victoria. You said the roses would be more appropriate. Traditional, Victoria corrected sharply. I was thinking of what's best for. For who? I interrupted. For Emma, or for your country club friends who might be uncomfortable with anything celebrating her Japanese heritage? How dare you? Victoria stood, her composure cracking. I've only ever wanted what's best for this family, your version of family. I kept my voice steady. The version that excludes Emma's Chinese heritage, that tries to erase every trace of her mother's culture. Mom? Emma's voice shook. What does she mean about my trust fund? Michelle, my lawyer, stepped forward. We've discovered unauthorized withdrawals from your trust fund made by your father and grandmother. They've been using your money to fund their takeover of the wedding arrangements. James paled. Now wait a minute. The trust fund I established, I continued, specifically for your education and future, not for your grandmother's attempt to create her idea of a proper wedding. Victoria stood, straightening her designer jacket. This is ridiculous. Emma understands that we're giving her the wedding she deserves. By stealing her money, by excluding her mother, by canceling every element that reflects her heritage. I pulled out more documents. Let's talk about the guest list you revised. Every one of my family members removed. Every friend who doesn't fit your social circle eliminated. Emma grabbed the list, her hands shaking. Aunt May isn't invited? My cousins. But you said they declined. Because she never sent their invitations, I said quietly. Just like she planned to block me from attending, even though I'm paying for everything. The vendors shifted uncomfortably. Maria the florist spoke again. Mrs. Henderson, you told us the mother of the bride had willingly stepped back. She had no right to be involved. Victoria exploded. This family has standards, traditions. Racism, I suggested mildly. Fraud? Are those the traditions you're defending? Claire stepped forward, adding her own files to the table. We have security footage of Mrs. Henderson attempting to alter legally binding contracts. The hotel takes such actions very seriously. Victoria's face contorted. James, are you going to let her destroy everything we've planned? But James was staring at the trust fund documents, his face ashen. Victoria, you said the money was coming from your accounts. It hardly matters now, she snapped. Catherine clearly intends to ruin everything, just like she ruined you by trapping you into marriage. Enough. Emma's voice cracked like a whip. She stood, tears streaming down her face. All my life, you've told me what's proper, what's traditional, what's best. But you've been lying. Using my money to erase who I am, who my mother is. Darling, Victoria reached for her, but Emma stepped back. I wanted cherry blossoms because they remind me of the trips Mom and I took after the divorce, when Dad was too busy with Susan to remember my birthdays. I wanted my Chinese and Japanese relatives there because they're my family too. But you, she turned to her father. You both just wanted to pretend I'm someone else. Someone more? Traditional? I supplied softly. Emma nodded, tears falling. I don't want your traditional wedding. I want my wedding. With all of my family, all of my heritage, all of me. Victoria's face hardened. You're being dramatic. Once Catherine repaid, these contracts will. Actually, Michelle interrupted. Mrs. Chen has no obligation to transfer or terminate these contracts. Furthermore, as the trustee of Emma's trust fund, she has the right to pursue legal action regarding the unauthorized withdrawals. You wouldn't dare, Victoria hissed at me. Think of the scandal. The scandal of a grandmother stealing from her granddaughter. Of using fraud to exclude the mother of the bride. I stood gathering my documents. I think that scandal is already here, Victoria. The only question is how public you want it to become. The next hour was a blur of legal discussions and vendor negotiations. Victoria and James left in stummy silence, their perfect plans in shambles. Susan slipped away without a word, probably realizing she could be next on Victoria's disposal list when no longer useful. Emma stayed. After everyone left, we sat together in the empty dining room, her head on my shoulder like when she was small. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I knew some of what she was doing was wrong, but I was afraid to stand up to her, to Dad, to all of it. You have nothing to apologize for, I stroked her hair. Victoria's been manipulating this family for decades. But it stops now. The wedding, she lifted her head. Can we start over? Plan it together. The way I always wanted. I smiled, pulling out my phone to show her the photos I'd saved. Cherry blossom arrangements, fusion menu ideas, design elements blending our cultural heritage. I kept everything you originally wanted before Victoria took over. We can start with these. Emma spent the next hour excitedly going through the photos, her true personality emerging from under Victoria's influence. We called my sister May, who cried happy tears at being reinstated as a bridesmaid. Emma's cousins immediately started planning the traditional tea ceremony she'd been afraid to mention to Victoria. The wedding, when it happened 3 months later, was everything Emma had dreamed of. Cherry blossoms and peonies decorated the grand plaza's ballroom. Guests enjoyed a fusion menu that celebrated both sides of her heritage. She wore a modern white gown for the ceremony and a stunning kipao for the reception. Victoria and James didn't attend. They sent a cold note about family loyalty and traditional values, which Emma read once and threw away. She danced with her uncle instead of her father, surrounded by family who loved her for exactly who she was. During the mother-daughter dance, Emma whispered, "Thank you for fighting for me, Mom. For showing me it's okay to fight for myself." I held her close, remembering a little girl who used to hide her Chinese school books from Victoria, who learned to be ashamed of her mixed heritage. "You never have to hide who you are," I told her. "Not ever again." Later that night, as guests enjoyed the fusion of Eastern and Western desserts, Claire found me by the cherry blossom display. "Victoria stopped by the hotel yesterday," she mentioned casually. "Wanted to register a complaint about the ethnic decorations being visible from the lobby. And I gave her directions to our competitor across town. Heard they're very traditional there." She grinned. "Very white." I laughed, watching Emma dance with her new husband, her kipao shimmering under the lights. Around them, family members from both sides of her heritage celebrated together, proving that love knows no cultural boundaries. The next morning, I received a final text from Victoria. "You've ruined this family's reputation." I sent back a photo of Emma surrounded by cherry blossoms, glowing with happiness and pride in her heritage. "No, Victoria, I just helped it bloom." These days, my design firm specializes in fusion weddings, helping other multicultural couples celebrate their unique heritage. Emma helps when she can, sharing her story with brides facing similar pressure to erase parts of themselves. Victoria still makes occasional attempts to reassert control, but her power over our family is gone. Emma's trust fund has been secured, with new trustees who understand the value of preserving her heritage rather than erasing it. Most importantly, Emma is finally free to be herself, all of herself. The wedding photos in our hall show a bride glowing with pride in both sides of her heritage, surrounded by family who love her completely. And that's worth more than all of Victoria's tradition.